One of the earliest Latinas making an impact socially and politically was Dolores Huerta. Dolores' accomplishments have inspired many young Latinas. One of them is Rebecca Jimenez. She served both as mayor and city council member of a small Arizona community of Guadalupe. This is a town of about 6,000 people, and there are approximately 2,000 registered voters, with only a quarter of those showing up on election day to vote.
A lot of them tell me, because in small town politics, it's a whole different arena than in larger cities. And there's some community groups that always have their claws on council members, and they're just tired of it. They're like, nothing ever changes, I'm not going to make a difference, is what a lot of them believe. And I think that is so untrue, and I want to change that perception and motivate these people to come out and vote.
Rebecca became involved with politics following a public outcry in opposition to a proposed construction project. When the residents felt their concerns weren't being heard, Rebecca decided to step forward and try to change that. This ultimately led to a seat on the city council and very quickly into a stint as mayor.
I decided, well, here I have 4 kids. I'm a student at ASU. I know this was not the time. I felt it wasn't the time. But then I was like, well, if I don't do something now, I can't complain about it, because here was an opportunity to now step up and try to make a difference. So the constituents will be told ahead of time, this is what we're thinking about doing. Not, here's what's going to happen already.
As mayor of Guadalupe, Rebecca gained national notoriety when she publicly criticized the Maricopa County Sheriff, Joe Arpaio, for his tactics to locate and arrest illegal immigrants in her community.
Apparently, I was the first public official to ever approach him while he was in their town. Many have come afterwards and criticized him on media the day after or in a different location, but not right there in front of him at that moment.
It was after her run-in with Arpaio that Rebecca realized her actions and words were not only for her constituents, but that she was impacting more than just the city of Guadalupe.
I think as a young, Latina, Hispanic, Chicana, mother, student, teacher, and I don't say teacher as I teach in a school, but I think, a role model to my kids. I think it's important to have my voice heard, because a lot of other Latinas will be able to relate with, to me, with me, and hopefully get motivated by me and want to do something differently.
Rebecca now looks to other Latinas who've been there before to seek guidance as she moves forward with her career in politics.
The impact of the Comadre Network is important, especially if you're a younger woman as myself in politics. I didn't have that before, but once I got into politics, the women have been very gracious with their time and wanting to meet with me, and I've been inspired by them.
One of the women Rebecca met and sought guidance from is Dolores Huerta. While Rebecca knew of Dolores, she didn't realize the full impact of Dolores' accomplishments until she went back to school.
I started school about 3.5, 4 years ago, college, and I started in a community college and then transferred to ASU. And that's when I started learning about Cesar Chavez. You've heard about them in the past, and Dolores Huerta. You hear about these people, but I never knew. As a Latina, I'm thinking, well, you can relate more if you hear about a Dolores Huerta figure, and you didn't hear about that. Like I said, I was in my 30s before I heard of her.
Rebecca now understands the true value of a role model, having someone with which she can relate. It's a life lesson she feels helps guide her in her efforts to provide change for the greater good of her community.
My grandma speaks Spanish, and only Spanish to this day. And although I do not understand Spanish, I know that's a little different. My dad is first-generational American. And I think he had this where my mom was half Jewish and half, she's got a combination of Spanish and Mexican and German. And so I think he talked English to her all the time, but he didn't want to talk Spanish in the house. So when you bring the different, my experiences at home and seeing my different family members and interacting, and you see what happens in your community, and you know that there's problems with health care, there's problems with the educational attainment, there's drug use, and you see a lot of things happening to people, your people, and I say that because it's people in your town and people you can relate to as far as they're being Latino or, people of color. And I think what I can bring to that is I see a different perspective when I come into politics, and I can represent that part of it. I could see a view of a different sorts, being a Latina in politics, and hopefully bring that to the table and changing public policy.
While Rebecca may not know exactly where her future will lead her in politics, she's pleased with the impact she's made on the small town of Guadalupe, bringing residents together and getting them engaged in the political process.
I've been packing them in, whether they're for me or against me. My council chambers have been full since I've been on council, which is exciting to see. It means people are interested in one way or the other. They want to know.
Getting involved to better one's community speaks to an underlying desire to create positive, long-range change, not only for oneself, but for their families, neighbors, and generations to come.
I think a lot of women, not just Latina women, become involved in their community first, PTA, League of Women Voters, and find that they're very effective and find actually that they're better than the men. And so they say, okay, if I'm just as good as a man, why don't I run for office? And so they'll run for local office, find that they win there. And I think a lot of Latino women, as other women, are very attractive to voters and can get elected. Then they work their way up.